I'm so excited to welcome her to the show. Please welcome my guest this evening, Fumiko Hoshi.
Yay! Hello. Hello,
Hello.
everybody. Ooh, I tried to
Whoop.
wave, but there you go.
There we go.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Thanks for
As
having me on,
always,
Jay.
oh, my pleasure. As always, folks, let me know if there's anything I need to adjust with the audio levels. I think I've got them good, but you never know. But yes, Fumiko, as I was saying, I've actually been meaning to have you on for a while. My very first guest, Lane Blanc, is actually a moderator in the EN VTubers Discord server that you run. And when I started the show, I asked her, I was like, is there anybody that you would suggest that I reach out to have as a guest? And she said, you should talk with Fumiko. And circumstances kept us from getting together before now, but better late than never. I'm so happy to have you on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to just chat together.
For sure. I suppose using the EN VTubers Discord server as sort of a jumping off point, it was initially the aspiring VTubers Discord server, and you later changed the name, and that's definitely been, outside of your own personal content, a very big project and undertaking of yours. I was wondering if you could tell me a bit about how that all started.
Sure, yeah. So I think it really just started because when I joined the VTuber community, I realized that there was this hole. Like there wasn't really any central place to like learn about VTubing. There wasn't really like any sort of resources to help people get started. And so I thought to myself, like, I have some experience with building communities, and I think that I would be able to bring value back to the VTuber community by making a place for people to like find a home and learn from others that are, post debut as well. And so I made aspiring VTubers because I wanted people that were interested in becoming a VTuber to be able to chat with people that are actually VTubers and learn how to do it step by step. And
Yeah.
I think Mhm.
That there's a lot of really good resources there that obviously I myself am not a VTuber, but like I said, it was one of the first servers that I wound up joining when I started crafting this whole thing. And
Mhm.
it's been really cool to just see people filter in over time and be able to share their knowledge and sort of have that central hub, because you have your own personal Discord server and the NVTuber Discord server is not it. That you've kept it very separate and are very diligent in how you run it to make sure that you don't actually impose bias or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm very conscious of not pushing my own brand into something that I feel like is supposed to be more like a resource hub for others. I didn't build EN VTubers to build my brand. I used it to be able to understand what others may look for in trying to build their own brands.
Mm. But that's really cool in and of itself, because it became not only a resource for others to learn from each other, but it became, I guess, almost sort of a broader study for you.
It did, yeah. A lot of it was like trial and error in terms of like recruiting moderators and just kind of running like rapidly growing community. But it was also just kind of understanding, I guess, the climate of the VTuber community because, on Twitter, everything is very like to the algorithm, right? It's hard to see
Mm-hmm.
all of the things that maybe you would want to see without some sort of bias that the algorithm is pushing you. You might be missing a lot. But with the server, because it's my baby and I'm constantly watching over it, I also have a good understanding of the things that people are looking for when they're trying to join the VTuber community and what kind of questions they're asking. So then I use that as an opportunity to be able to present things in the server called workshops. And so we bring in people that are expert at, say, like setting up OBS. And so then somebody comes in and runs a workshop for a couple of hours on how to set up OBS, and then people, get a jump start on things like that. It's
Yeah.
very cool.
Mm. And what was the impetus for shifting it from being called the Aspiring VTubers server to EN VTubers? Was that a active branding choice? Did you feel that the server had evolved past its initial sort of concept into something broader? What was the reasoning behind that?
I realized that the name itself, aspiring VTubers, actually excluded people that were already considered post debut at the time, which means that they had already
Mm,
started streaming, they were using their model, and they were just good to go. And I got a lot of questions all the time on whether or not they could actually join the server because they weren't sure. We have always tried to support not only aspiring VTubers but all kinds of VTubers. And I realized that with the name change, I believed that it would not only like broaden the horizon and be able to like be inclusive of people that were post debut. It's also really good for people that are just like fans of VTubers as well to learn more about them too.
that makes a lot of sense. And as for me, one, I have a great deal of respect for the amount of work that you do managing not one but two Discord servers, because
Oh.
for a long time, for a better part of 5 years, I did community management professionally, which included running a Discord server. And it's a lot of work. Just the unfortunately, the number of bad actors that can pop up and sort of corrode a community from within, and just being able to fairly and justly police that while still being able to grow things and being welcoming, and just the overall management takes a lot of work. And I no longer do community management professionally by my own choice. And when I started VTuber Talk, I realized that I had a choice of, do I want to start a server or not? And I said no. I
Yeah.
was like, I know that I am sure that by the numbers, the correct answer is to start a Discord server and to run that and be able to use that for go live notifications and for community building and things of that sort. And I just sort of told myself, well, one, VTuber Talk is meant to be a very casual project for myself that I'm not pushing to really, really optimize. But in general, I said, I don't want to ever run a Discord server ever again. I just don't. And
It
I am
uh,
fine giving up whatever value I might have had in running one for the just mental health of not having to deal with it.
there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes for people that manage like community discords
Oh, yeah.
that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. Like, for instance, gosh, I used to spend like 10-15 hours a week on just the VTuber server alone back
Oh,
when
I
it was
believe it.
still like ramping up. And one thing that I really tried to ensure is that the moderator choices that I made were sound and just. So that meant that I had to go through a rigorous interview process that required me to like schedule two to four people together for a voice interview to understand how they would want to be a moderator and why, and their decision making process and their values. And then off of that, I made a choice on whether or not to recruit them as a moderator. And normally people don't go that far. Normally, normally it's just, you go through the application, maybe you have a chat with them, and then that's about it. But I
Yeah.
really tried to I think one of the biggest things, one of the biggest hurdles can be moderator drama. And I wanted to avoid that as much as possible. So
Yeah.
I put in a
That's
lot
the
of the front
worst.
end work.
Dealing with
Yeah.
external drama is okay because you have the ban hammer for that. But
Mhm.
when it's internal drama, that's when things can escalate very quickly. And
Mhm.
being able to select people that you trust to be level-headed and mature, and to just, select people that you are as reasonably close to zero as possible, sure that they will not cause that type of drama themselves, or at the very least that you will be able to moderate things in such a way to reduce and mitigate things easier than you might with others.
Yeah, it's easy to bring on a moderator, really hard to take them off. I think
Yeah.
because especially with my own brand for my own server, it's I have sensitive information that moderators have access to because it's just necessary for them to be able to help me. And when I make a choice to let go of a moderator, I'm also making the choice to let them have that information with them and they can do as they choose. And I feel like for me to be able to feel comfortable, I really have to trust every moderator that I bring on. So I think that rigorousness is very like needed for something especially like VTubing.
Yeah. And although I decided that I was not going to start my own server, one thing I realized was, this show is about interviewing VTubers, and it's a very generalistic show in its content. So I'm not sure if you've ever noticed, but in the panels of the channel, I actually have a link to the EN VTubers Discord server, and I have a note that says this
Oh.
show is not endorsed, sanctioned, affiliated in any official capacity with that server. I wanted to make it very clear. I appreciate what you do, and I wanted to help promote it, but I also was very cognizant to be like, I'm not an official representative, but I'm now trying to recall if I have changed it to say EN VTubers or if it still says aspiring.
No, it actually says EN VTubers.
Okay, cool.
Right
I
here.
did change that. Good.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so sweet. I really like that. Thank you so much.
That's been there since day one. That I was like, okay, if I'm not going to have one, maybe I can at least point people someplace.
Do you think that you would ever change your mind in the future to make a server for VTuber Talk?
If it was, it would probably just be an announcements channel that, like, just not even chat channels. Just like I said, I did it professionally for 5 years, and
Oh goodness.
I don't want to ever do community management again, quite frankly.
Yeah, I can understand.
If people would really want to join a server just to have it as a extra, touch point to get notifications of when I announce guests and go live, I could be convinced to that, because then it's just sort of another social media thing that I post to. I don't want to do community management again, period.
Yeah, it definitely comes with its hurdles, especially when it comes to taking up your time. It's very, very time consuming to run a community server. There's so much coordination, so much back end work. On the off chance, there's drama, there's growing pains, there's a bunch that goes on, and so.
Yeah, and the sort of rule of thumb I've figured out, and this goes for a lot of things, and that is, if the general populace doesn't know something went wrong, nothing went wrong. That if you're able to keep drama internal and, figure things out before it creeps into the public eye, that's the success, because it's inevitable that groups of people are going to have disagreements and that there will be friction. It's how you manage it, and if you are able to keep it from escalating into something that people outside, whoever it directly concerns, knows, if you're able to keep it from getting past that, then you've succeeded.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that sometimes that can be difficult. I mean, of course, you never really understand like how somebody internally functions. It's always, there's always going to be a certain risk factor to it. But I think that like being able to, it's either you don't have a server and you just like
you either do what I do,
yeah.
or you accept the risk. And it's the type of thing that I think part of why I've been okay just sort of saying no to all of it is because, like I said, VTuber Talk it was very much designed for me to be a smaller thing, that I'm not trying to build this into a huge personal brand. I want to make it into something, but I'm not trying to stream professionally. Whereas for someone like you who is really, trying to see how far you can push this, it makes perfect sense that if I wanted VTuber Talk to be bigger, I'd probably just, bite the bullet and say, okay, I'll deal with this.
Right.
So a lot of it comes with the inherent sort of box I put around VTuber Talk as a concept for me. And someday that might change. I'm not going to say it won't change, but for now, I'm very comfortable with where I have the show as a whole and with my lack of a Discord server.
Yep. Yeah, I can feel that. I know that like values wise, EN VTubers brings me a lot of like fulfillment in life in general, being able to like help people and have like something like that. But at the same time, it does come at it definitely impacts my own personal branding, because it's either that I'm spending time on the server or I'm spending time on my VTuber, and so I'm always actively making that choice. So it can be quite difficult sometimes.
Do you have any particular visions for where the server might go in the future? Any either projects you're working on that you're able to talk about with it, or do you see it where it is right now as where you want it to be, and that for at least the foreseeable future, maintenance would be the name of the game?
I think that right now the way that I'm viewing the server for the future is I want a few more moderators brought on. And the way it's interesting, the way that I have separated my moderators is by like jobs that they do. Essentially, I wanted to avoid burnout from my mods,
Mm,
and so the way that I figured that I figured that I could do that is by making it so they don't have to focus on the whole server itself. They only have to focus on whatever part of the server they want. So we have like event coordination. So I myself and another moderator like coordinate events and do that. And then we have quality assurance. So making sure, everything is okay in the channels people are posting per the rules and things like that. We have mod mail assistance, so we always have that's essentially just like people opening tickets and then they are addressed and
yeah,
things like that.
you've
And
really
so
compartmentalized everything. That I I remember reading a
yeah.
while back the moderator list and seeing those categories, but it didn't really fully occur to me until you just said it now of why you would do that specifically, because then it means that, all right, they don't have the stress of having to check every single channel and server, that they have their own little area, their little district of jurisdiction, and that's far less daunting just mentally than having to be a mod for the whole server. And obviously, I'm sure,
uh,
if a mod sees something going wrong in a section that isn't theirs, that they're still going to act, but it means that they don't need to necessarily worry about the day-to-day maintenance of that area. And I think that's a really smart approach.
yeah, I think it was because I was feeling the effects of burnout myself, and taking a step back and trying to figure out why, I realized that it was yeah, I because the server is like my baby. I was constantly looking at every single channel every day and moderating everything. And on top of course the wonderful job that my moderators do already. And I realized that that's not a good healthy way to do anything. Like I shouldn't be looking at it so often and being so obsessed with it. And I think I wanted to avoid having my moderators feel the exact same way. And so being able to give them their own like department, so to speak, has really helped in general. And a lot of people, I think, feel more relaxed in that way. But it's still a learning process. I think,
It
running
always
a
is.
community, yeah, running a community is one thing. Being somebody that's kind of like not a manager, but having to somewhat manage people, the moderators themselves, is a whole nother skill set that I'm still trying to work on myself.
For sure, for sure. But you seem to be doing a very good job of it so far.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I just realized a couple people actually followed before we hit the screen where I have the
Ooh.
notification box. So thank you to Anime Thighs 13 and Taco
Yay.
Sapien
Thank
and Sir
you.
Danker.
So let's go.
Yeah, so moving away from the huge thing that is EN VTubers, by the way, folks, do join the server if you aren't in there already. It is a great resource and just a great community. And thank you, Akira Hayashi channel. Akira Hayashi, I'm assuming, for the follow. But as for your own channel,
Yay.
you actually just got back from a vacation. I hope your vacation was relaxing, first off.
It was amazing. Yes. Very, very much needed time off.
That's always good, yeah.
Hmm.
But you mentioned that one of the things that you've been doing recently, or that you just finished, was a Ocarina of Time playthrough.
I did. Yeah, I finished that a couple of months ago. I played it quite a few times before, but I don't know why, but I felt just compelled to finish it again. And so I booted it up and I spent about a month playing Ocarina of Time with chat. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Uh, is there any part of the game that, having played it already and going through it again as a streamer, either felt better, worse? Did you realize anything had aged particularly well as you were going?
it was interesting. Despite playing the game a bunch of times, this was actually the very first time I've ever streamed the game. And so it was kind of a new experience because chat was able to like kind of play along essentially, and tell me like hidden things that I didn't know about. We made memes together. One of the memes that we actually had is that, I love opening chests, but I didn't realize that a lot of the chests are actually blue rupees. So it was an ongoing meme, like, vote in chat. Is this a blue rupee or
Oh yeah,
not? And
place your
things
bets
like
now.
that. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. So it made the experience of the game a lot different despite playing it a bunch of times before. The
Mm,
blue rupee, yeah. So that was a lot of fun.
and because I'm trying to remember, blue rupees are just 5, right?
There are only 5. So
Yeah, it's like,
sometimes I
why
get
would you even put that in a chest? Like, at least make it a red one. That's 20.
it was very rare to ever see a red one. Even more rare to see like a silver one. So it was very sad. I was so
Aw.
sad. And then of course I didn't remember how to like upgrade my wallet all the way. And so, I was constantly sitting at 200 rupees, and I would get another blue rupee and it would just go nowhere. So it was like
Well, at least you're only losing 5 and not 20 or 50, I guess.
that's true, but I felt like I would rather be losing 20 just to not see a blue rupee.
Well, at least it matches you.
It does. It does match me. But actually, um somebody in our community, Alex Rod, I believe, he made a video that was
Was
a
it?
compilation.
I was about to say, did they just make a blue rupee compilation?
They did.
Oh my gosh.
Among other memes, but yes, I believe they tracked every blue rupee that I opened and they put it on YouTube.
That's incredible. Please send me that link later. I'm going to need to check that out.
Definitely. It's so good. It's so good.
And while you were playing Ocarina of Time most recently, you've said that your favorite Zelda game is Majora's Mask. What about that particular game sticks out for you? And I suppose it is a very unique Zelda game. So it definitely stands out from the get-go. But which part of it for you really elevates it to be your favorite?
I think that I just really liked some of the underlying dark tones of the series. I guess Ocarina of Time, a lot of the emphasis was like on the exploration and the dungeons, and it's a really amazing game. I love that game so much. In Majora's Mask, I would say that the dungeons were actually a bit lackluster comparatively, but it's more like all of the side characters have stories that are extremely memorable. And that's what I really like. I like a lot of character development, and I think that the way that Nintendo chose to like present the game with a 3-day cycle and going back in time and doing it all over again is actually a big draw for me, despite it being a something that makes people feel anxious and actually drop the game a lot.
But that's kind of the point, that it's literally a race against time to prevent the end of the world. And mechanically, I think the fact that it stresses people out is successful design. And if somebody playing the game realizes, okay, this type of stress is not what I want in my gaming experience, and I put it down for that reason, I can totally respect that. But I think that is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely. I like. It's interesting because a lot of the people that I've spoken to before that have dropped the game don't actually realize that you can slow down time to kind of make that anxiety disappear. Because once you understand how to slow down time, you essentially, time isn't even really that prevalent anymore. It doesn't really matter. Only matters for like certain side quests and things like that. But for actually like going through a dungeon in the in 3 days that you're given and you slow down time, it's extremely doable. Even if you have never played a Zelda game before, even if you are the worst at solving puzzles and things like that, it makes it very manageable. So if there's anybody in the chat that dropped the game and wants to pick it back up, you can slow down time. So you should try it out.
By the way, thank you, Darren Chen, for the follow. Sir Danger in the chat
Okay.
mentions that the music for Slowing Down Time was a good remix, and something that's come up on some of my previous shows is that I'm a big video game music fan. And one thing that just I now associate with Ocarina of Time is a particular remix album. It was an artist called Theophany, Theophany. They did this just haunting remix album called Time's End. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it. If you haven't, I can't recommend it enough. It is just this beautiful, haunting 54-minute album that goes through the music of Majora's Mask, the Clocktown theme arrangement that they did is it feels like it's out of a horror movie that they
Ooh.
they have it. It's creepy from the get-go. It's just da, 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 da,
Oh man.
and they play with the tempo, and it's just they sort of bend the notes a bit and have this really creepy background. They work in Skull Kid's laughter into the tracks, and it's the type of thing that you could just put it outside on a speaker on Halloween, and your front yard will feel like a good haunted house just with that album because it's that type of creepy.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like the Ocarina of Time soundtrack itself is somewhat creepy already. So I've heard a few more like yeah, like creepy remixes before, but that sounds amazing. Please send that to me after. I would
Yeah,
love to hear it.
definitely. You mentioned you haven't finished Breath of the Wild. I will encourage you to get around to that. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Did you end up dropping it because of time, or was there something about maybe the open world atmosphere just didn't do it for you?
So there were a couple of reasons why I dropped it. One of them was, in fact, like the open world kind of. I don't know if something is too open for me, I get way too sidetracked, and then I don't finish anything. So I'll be like,
I
oh, I
can
gotta go this
respect that.
way. Yeah. So yeah, it's a little bit hard. I need some linear like direction. But then the other thing is, when when Breath of the Wild was first released, it actually didn't have any language settings for Japanese. And I really did not like the English voice actor for Zelda, and it just so happened that I kept hitting a bunch of like
Oh, you hit the
um
memories, and so she
mhm.
kept coming up.
She kept talking, and I was like, okay, I need to stop. I'll wait till they release the language pack. And then they actually did, and I just haven't found time to go back. I really want to at some point. I think it'd be very fun, especially to go through on stream. I think another difficult part of it was the weapons having health or having
Yeah, the durability.
durability.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I that's so difficult for me. I get really sad when a weapon breaks. So
Mm,
I just have to get over that, and then I think I'll be able to finish it.
yeah. Definitely encourage you to give it another go. That maybe even with the voice pack that you realize, all right, still not for you, but I would encourage at least the second shot. And if you don't like it, well, at least you tried.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I can say I gave it an honest effort.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned when we spoke earlier was that some of your favorite games, or ones that at least had significant memories for you, were a bunch on the PS2. And in particular, you mentioned playing sports games with your father. And that's
Yeah.
just a really cool thing in general, that being able to play video games with your parents, because I certainly did not have that experience. Um, my parents were very supportive of all my hobbies. They just had no interest in games or anime or nerdy things themselves. So I sort of had to discover things on my own. But being able to have a parent then you can connect with for those types of things and make those memories is always something really special. Do you recall either like what the first game you played with your father was, or if there's any particularly significant ones that you look back fondly on?
Let's see. So my dad was the one that kind of fueled like my video game addiction. He's the one that introduced them to me. And it started off with the Super Nintendo. So we just so happened to have a Super Nintendo in the house, but I never used it. And I went to a daycare center, and they had a Super Nintendo there. So then all the kids were playing it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I really want one." So I went home. I was like, Dad, I want a Super Nintendo," and he's like, "Umi, we have one." I was like, "What? We have this?" And
Surprise,
I
you
was
got
like
your wish.
6. Yeah, I was like, "Oh wow, okay." So then I was playing like Super Mario World. They picked up Kirby Superstar for me, Yoshi's Island as well, and so I grew up playing a lot of those games, and my dad would either watch or he would play as well. Um, and then when it came time for the N64 era, my dad bought an N64 for me for Christmas. And then he would watch me play through Ocarina of Time actually. And so I didn't really have like access to understanding like what games were releasing or anything like that. So he was always the one kind of supplying the game. So he's the one that got Ocarina of Time. He's the he got like a Star Wars game. He got Blade Runner. And
Dad
then of
has good
course
taste.
he does. I'm so surprised. I'm not gonna lie, 'cause he doesn't really play games anymore. So kind of remembering about the time that he did is a little bit jarring for me. But yeah, he's the one that actually got Majora's Mask. I had no idea they were releasing another Zelda game, and one day the gold cartridge just came in our mailbox, and I was like, sweet. And then I just played that. I played a lot of that game. Um, so yeah, very fond memories with my dad. And oh my gosh, when I was a child, he helped me go through Ocarina of Time through places that scared me. So like the Pogues
Oh, that's
scared
so
me.
cute.
Yeah, I can go through the graveyard without his help. And so I would hand him the controller, and he would just go through the graveyard for me, and I'd be like, "Okay, give it back now," when he leaves and stuff like that. Yeah, oh, that was so long ago. That was at least like, man, like 20 years ago. So yeah, nowadays, I think he'll play like sports games still. So
Hmm.
like the NBA 2K series and stuff like that. And I picked up some of that from him as well. So I grew up on like NBA Street for the PS2. I played all of the SSX, which is like a snowboarding series
Yeah,
by
I remember
EA.
that one.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great game. Very addicting. And then yeah, I played like ATV Off-Road Fury. Like he
Oh
bought that
my.
game as well. Yeah, a little bit more obscure. But yeah. So yeah, I've played a lot of different genres of games. I think of FIFA as well.
Did that
Yeah.
end up making you into a sports fan at all, or was that just a gaming centric thing?
Um, I think I indirectly grew up as kind of a sports fan because he was also a bit sporty. So he tried to get me into golf when I was a kid. And I played a bit of golf growing up, and so every so often, I don't have my clubs in Canada, but I would go to the driving range and hit balls, or I would go to a course and do that for like half a day. Or I also grew up playing basketball. So in middle school, I played a lot of basketball because my dad liked the Sacramento Kings, and now he likes the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I was going to say
And
not many people like the Sacramento Kings nowadays, or at
oh,
least
is that true?
rather I'll rephrase that.
Uh,
Only the diehards like the Sacramento Kings because they have not been good, at least
Ooh.
last I checked. But I am
Mhm.
also not as actively into sports as I used to be. But at least last I checked, they were not very good, and the Golden State Warriors very much were. So that could explain a
That's
bit.
so sad. That's so sad. I remember growing up, there was a big thing with the Sacramento Kings versus the LA Lakers. And that was like the only excuse me, that was the only time that the Kings were like I don't know, like in the grand finals or something. So
Hmm.
um and that's the last time I remember them being good, and I was in like 5th grade. So that was a very long time ago. I actually tried to watch the NBA playoffs last year because COVID made me that bored that I was trying to stream the NBA playoffs just to learn about like who's good now and stuff like that. And it was so interesting. They made all of the players play in a dome or something, like a
Well, so
COVID
they
dome.
they refer to it as a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because basically the teams came into the facility, and I think it was actually memory serves, it was at Disney World in Florida.
Oh, really?
I could be wrong, but that Disney has a sports complex attached, and that they had all the players in these dedicated hotels, and they had the training facilities there and the arena, and it was basically they were not allowed to leave. That they came in,
Yeah.
spent 2 weeks to make sure that nobody had anything, and then they're like, all right, as long as nobody leaves this bubble, we know that the bubble is clean. So
I
that's
swear,
my
like-
guess of what you were probably thinking of when you say dome.
Yeah.
There was probably a domed arena. I don't know, but I do remember that they took those types of extreme precautions to mitigate as much risk as possible. I think they still had a couple of players break the bubble and
Yeah.
cause problems, but that was at least the concept at play.
Well, I thought like some of the players had gotten COVID because they had broken the bubble regulations during the playoffs. I don't know if that's actually true. That's what I had heard during the time. I'm pretty sure, or unless my memory is like
That sounds
really
right. I
terrible.
remember
Yeah.
hearing that they had issues of just players, sneaking out and going to bars or something, and
Yeah.
then they would test positive and they'd be like, really, we try to do this whole freaking thing. Like, it was a logical approach. To the NBA's credit, the concept of, let's get everyone in the same place, that they're not traveling across the country, they're not going in and out of airports, and that, yeah, they're not going to really be able to have much of a social life, but you're getting paid millions of dollars, so deal with it.
Yeah, it's like you're getting paid money. Like, what more could you ask
And
for to play
you have internet,
basketball?
you can see your family. It's not like you're being isolated. You're being isolated physically, but we have the internet, and it's a great thing.
And it's not even that long compared to like everybody else who actually has to stay home for like
Yeah.
a year and a half. But yeah, I remember that. Actually, funny that you mentioned Disney, because Disney also, like, they host other things too. Like, the Disney had a Dota tournament, I believe, hosted.
Okay, well, actually, because that was one of the next things I was going to bring up. You mentioned that you have put 5,000 hours into Dota 2.
Uh-huh. Yes, I have. I have a problem.
Now, what is the tense of this verb? Is it have or had? Because I don't recall seeing you play Dota much on stream, but that doesn't mean that you haven't been playing a bunch off stream.
I think I've finally kicked the addiction. Even I would say like 5 months ago, I was still playing it pretty heavily. Like, I never stream it, but I do play it, and it shows up on my Discord status. And so people would make fun of me from my community all the time, be like, "Oh, Fumi is on Dota again." And so I actually just uninstalled it for I don't know, like the 10th time or something.
I was going to say, let's check back in a month or two.
Yeah, we'll see. Actually, I can check my Steam now. The last time that I played Dota 2 was 2 months ago. 2 months ago. So
Okay, that's a pretty good time.
yeah, so not too bad. I think the addiction is gone now. But yeah, I love Dota 2. I've been playing it since 2012, I believe. Wow, that almost a decade actually of Dota. That's a long time. So yeah, I put a lot of hours into it.
Now, as we'll get into soon enough, you play fighting games competitively. Did you ever play Dota competitively, or even if you didn't, did you ever consider playing competitively?
So I thought about playing competitively, but not to a super serious degree. I think it was more just I wanted to be better at Dota. I did have like a team, or I guess like a static, if you will, of people that I would normally play with. And we had entered a couple of online tournaments together, and we won one of them.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but I think there's a lot of stress to Dota in terms of like stress with your relationship with your teammates, and whereas like your friends. And I personally don't like that type of like high intensity stress all the time, and I certainly don't like it affecting my relationship with other people. So
Understandable.
yeah, so I just kind of play it more casually. nowadays.
But we might as well get into it because it's something I figure we can spend a good amount of time talking about. I initially got to know of you as a community leader in the Aspiring VTubers, now EN VTubers Discord server. Then I thought of you as a variety streamer, but now whenever your name comes up, I know you are a variety streamer at heart, but what sticks out to me is she's the FGC expert. That you play a good number of fighting games, several at least. Actually, I'll just ask, how many fighting games have you ever participated in high-level tournaments for?
High-level tournaments. Let's see. Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Well, I guess high-level tournaments relative to my skill. Like,
actually, I'll rephrase that. How many have you participated in organized tournaments for?
Okay. I think it'll be easier to list out my games because I don't have like a concrete number. I'll try to keep how many there are.
I'll track. You can list.
Okay. So Super Smash Brothers Brawl, Super Smash Brothers Melee, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and of course Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I have entered for Persona 4 Arena. I have entered tournaments for Dragon Ball Fighterz, Blaze Blue Tag Battle, Guilty Gear Strive, Multi-Blood Type Lumina is one I have coming up. And then I know I'm missing a couple, but that's
already 9.
Yeah. I played a lot.
Yeah. You are a variety streamer, but fighting games are absolutely your specialty. Do you recall what the first game you participated in an organized tournament for was?
I believe it was a Super Smash Brothers Brawl tournament, and that was at a GameStop. For the launch of Brawl.
I remember that. Was that the midnight release tournament thing that they did?
Yep, that was the only game I ever waited up for midnight for.
That might have been the only one I did too, or if I did, like, it was one of very few. I don't know how they ran it for yours. I remember at mine, they ran it, they did not let you choose your characters. It was random generated and random stages. And I got Yoshi, and the stage was Newport City, just that giant Earthbound one. And at the end of time, I was tied, and so we went to sudden death, and the other player and I were feeling each other out, and it got to the point where bombs started dropping. So I went to the lower levels because it was like, okay, I see them going in the upper areas, they could get hit by a bomb. And then a stage generated monster appeared and bit me and sent me flying. So I lost in the first round of that because I didn't know the stage yet, and I didn't know that there was like just a built-in stage hazard. It wasn't even a sudden death type of thing, that if you're in that particular area of this stage, that a monster can be generated and hit you.
Oh my gosh, that tournament was so poorly ran. I can't put it any lighter. Like, at our GameStop, it was random characters, but there was like a lottery system for the characters, so we were like drawing for them or something. And then
they didn't even go that far for us. It was just literally they put all the tokens on the question mark, handed you a controller, hit start.
Oh my gosh, I knew one of my friends actually won the tournament, and then he went further because I think there was like more to it. I think there was like a regional, and then there's like the big grand finals or something like that. Can't remember, but I do remember them winning, and then it was a big deal. But yeah, it was.
Now I want to sort of put an asterisk beside that one because it's such an unorthodox tournament. Like you said,
right.
I don't think really any normal tournament is going to have you randomly select your character.
No.
That one notwithstanding, what was the first tournament that you participated in?
I knew like tournaments weren't built that way. Like I even before even entering the fighting game
even
community,
then you can tell, all right, that's Nobody would actually
Yeah.
run a tournament like that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is probably
Yeah.
either GameStop or Nintendo's doing,
And I
right?
can
Like,
understand that for a midnight release thing, when you're going to have so many people and you need to filter through people in a practical time frame because it's already midnight,
right,
that
yeah.
just saying, all right, we're not going to bother having people taking time to pick characters at just each store because the staff there is not necessarily going to be trained to run a tournament at all
Right.
anyways, for them to
Uh-huh.
just say, okay, make everybody pick random, do random stages, and just keep the bracket going. And that from a store operation standpoint, I can respect why they would do that,
Mhm,
even if
mhm.
it sucked as a participant.
Yeah. I would say like yeah, if asterisk like no tournament is run like that now. Not
Yeah.
even like no small big tournament has ever run like that. So, I guess like tournaments back then are very different than tournaments now. I would say like grassroots is a very popular flavor word that a lot of people like to throw around, and I would say like grassroots kind of describes like my first year or two playing Brawl because tournaments weren't as bad as the GameStop one, but they could be pretty bad or pretty awkward. So the first Brawl tournament I ever went to after the release of Brawl, after the GameStop tournament was at a church. And so, and I like me. I'm sitting there wondering, like, is this how all tournaments will be? Will they be really weird? Like, is there no like central venue, no central like like rules? Like what's happening? um but that tournament was pretty crazy. So, I had met some people online. They had offered to drive me to the tournament. We had arrived in front of this church, and then as we were pulling up into the church, there was a car crash. And yeah, it was like it looked bad from the outside because like there were smashers standing outside, and then there were random people from the other car, and we were all very young, and somebody sticks out their their body out of the window, points at the smashers, and they're like, "Oh my god, those look like smashers!" out loud as we're driving by. And I was so embarrassed. Little like 15, 16-year-old me was like, "Oh my god, this is awful. I want to go home."
That's
Uh,
incredible.
it was it's funny in retrospect, but at the time I was like, "Holy shit, they could be hurt." But the people that got crashed into actually became really good friends of mine, so it all worked out in the end.
Well, that's certainly a How I Met You story.
Yep. Good times.
What was your main in Brawl?
My main was Game and Watch. I played lots of games.
Okay. I didn't. So I am not. I can't really say that I'm in the FGC community or the fighting game community, but I pay vague attention to Smash, not metas per se, but just, I'll watch the occasional high level tournament, and I have a couple friends who are really into it, so I hear some things secondhand from them. I remember, if memory serves, that Game & Watch was considered a higher tier character. I remember that in Brawl, Meta Knight was considered absolutely broken to the point where a couple tournaments outright banned selecting him.
Yes, that was a big thing for a long time. There was the Mennonite people that like were like, "No, don't ban him. Like this is so dumb. Why would we ban a character?" And then there were people like, "He's pretty heckin' broken. Like why would we
He's
not ban
occupying,
him?"
I think at one point, Meta Knight was either 3 or all 4 of the top 4 of Worlds.
I of World? I'm
Or,
not sure what that is.
or maybe it might have been Evo, not Worlds, Evo.
Oh, Evo. Yeah. Actually, so Evo did run a tournament for Brawl, but it was not. I remember there was a Rob player, and then the Rob player was playing against like a DDD or something like that.
Okay, so
I don't.
I'm probably just completely misremembering, but I
No,
remember one of my friends mentioning that there was like some high level tournament that just the top 4 was 3 or 4 Meta Knights, and that it may have helped sort of tip the scale for a couple of organizers.
Yeah, he became kind of a really big problem because like even for top eights, there'd be like six out of eight Meta Knights. I know SoCal had a lot of really good Meta Knights, and NorCal had a couple. Not really familiar with like more of the West or the East Coast, but in general, like he was kind of a little menace.
Mm,
He did everything that everybody else could do, but better, essentially, and he could fly. So,
yeah.
yeah, he was pretty good. He was pretty good. I think by the end of it, though, or at least, yeah, at least by the end of Brawl's lifetime, I don't believe that he was banned like uh universally. I think that in fact a lot of the bans for Meta Knight were let go of,
Mm,
essentially, because it was kind of like if you put bans on like local tournaments for this character and you made a choice to travel to tournaments that didn't have the band, then
you'd be at a competitive disadvantage because you wouldn't know how to play against Meta Knight.
right, yeah, you would have no matchup experience against Meta Knight, and then that would just put you at a deficit. So instead of banning him from your locals, I think people realized that, and then they took off
Mm,
the ban for the most part.
that makes sense. I
Yeah.
remember my main was Wolf, and I was really upset when he wasn't in 4. Thrilled when he came back in Ultimate. I only participated. It was a GameStop knockoff called Play and Trade,
Oh.
because they ran tournaments, and they were a franchise that never nearly as big as GameStop, but they had a couple dozen franchises around the country and have since shut down the vast majority of them. I don't know where they are now, but they ran tournaments, and I would go, and I would usually make it a couple rounds in. I think the farthest I made it, I think I made it to top 4 once, and usually
Ooh.
made like I made it usually 4-ish rounds in before being knocked out. That I was not somebody who put in a large amount of time, but I was at least competent enough to make an afternoon worth of time in my local shop.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's not easy to do, to be honest. I think that yeah, being able to beat a bunch of people regardless of like where you're doing it is still very hard, like
Yeah.
like being in top 4.
Hmm. Do you recall what the first tournament you ever won was?
Mm, they were always convention tournaments that I recall because I don't know if they're like the easiest tournaments or if people just didn't take me as seriously, or because it's a convention, maybe they're not as well ran. But yeah, I've won a number of convention tournaments, and then I've won a few local tournaments, but none of them stick out as like that's great. Like I did fantastic. I love my placement. I think more so I remember the people that I beat or
Mm,
have taken games from, because that oftentimes that tells me where I am with my milestones, I guess. Because if I
that
get a
makes
first
sense.
place, then yeah, like it's
If you get
not.
first
I
place and that the field was a bunch of just random people who weren't competitive to begin with,
Mhm.
that's not going to be as satisfying or actually indicative of your skill level as
Right.
one where, oh, I know that these at least half dozen established names in the community are participating today.
Exactly. Yeah. There's it doesn't feel good winning even a major tournament without having the big contenders there. Otherwise, it just feels kind of like an empty win.
Yeah.
Um, but for Brawl, I don't remember having extremely big wins. I have played against Mewtwo King, and I have played against Armada in Melee. Um, but I don't think I took games off of them. I took games off of someone named Marlin Pie, who is considered like a tech god for Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I very frequently, for that game in particular, for Marvel, I played a lot of sets against higher level people, higher profile people, I guess. And have done really well. I think that was my best performing game.
Who
Um,
was your main in that one?
I made Wolverine Taskmaster Sentinel. Um, so it's
Now,
it's like
as
a team based game.
yeah, I'm familiar with Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and how the gameplay works with the teams and everything.
Mhm.
Was that team composition considered a meta pick, or was it a bit more of a rogue team there?
At first it was considered a meta pick. In terms of like each individual character was at the time good. As the game progressed, and especially going into Ultimate, my characters were all nerfed, and there were characters that were buffed, and
Mm,
so my team became like kind of trash. And that was before I even realized that the synergy was not as good for my team as like other teams. So
mm.
that was unfortunate. But for the most part, despite my team being like kind of whack, I still did perform well in Ultimate too. I made it out of pools, I think twice for Marvel. So
Nice.
that yeah, that helped me uh keep on the delusion that my team was good at the time. So I didn't
It
have
was
to drop
just
them.
enough success to make you feel like you didn't need to change the composition. But looking back, you might be like, ooh, if I changed the composition, there might have been more.
Yeah, I might have been more successful had I been quicker to understand that my team wasn't going to do it for me.
Was there a point that you realized, okay, I'm good at fighting games in general? Because I feel like for the first, it's okay, I'm good at Brawl, and then I'm good at Brawl, and I'm good at Capcom versus Marvel. Was there uh, like a particular game or a moment where you were like, I'm just good at fighting games?
I'm I'm going to be honest, I don't even think that now. um
Fine,
I
I'll be
like
prideful for you.
yeah. Well, it's not it's difficult. I think there's definitely like because I have played for so long, I I understand that I do get a head start in like, being able to understand the controls really fast, being able to understand how to get better at a pretty decent rate. But I even now I tend to play against a lot of people that are much better than me. So unless I go to a tournament, it's extremely hard for me to gauge how I am as a player because everyone that is better than me continues to get better than me. Um and so even if I improve, it's hard for me to see it because they're adapting to my improvement. So I think that oftentimes it's performance based, which kind of sucks. So like if I make it out of pools for my games, then normally I'm like, okay, I'm pretty decent. I'm pretty decent at the game. I'm pretty good. But then on the flip side, it's very easy to for me to feel like if I lose to somebody, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have lost to them. I don't feel that good about this. Yeah, I wish I was better. That kind of mindset I get hooked on as well. So it honestly kind of depends on the day. Sometimes I feel like I'm really good. Sometimes I feel like I'm not that good at
Mm.
all.
Was there a point in time when you realized that even if you aren't necessarily in your own eyes good, that you realized, okay, I can pick up any game and play it, that the transferable skills that you had hit a point where you were able to just pick up and go with most games? Was there like one that you picked up and like, oh, I know exactly how to operate this because I remember it from that other game?
Mm, because there's games that are, well, I think it was from Guilty Gear Zerd 9 or whatever, the Guilty Gear before Strive. I was starting to learn how to do something called instant air dash, which is not in every game, but it's in enough games. And pretty much is a very specific input to be able to instantly jump off the ground and air dash. And so that took me about like 2 days to learn. I was still pretty new to fighting games, and so I was practicing it. And I realized when I picked up another game, maybe like 4 years later, called Dragon Ball Fighters, it had kind of the same input, and I picked it up really quick. I picked it
Mm.
up super fast, and so that's when I was like, oh, yeah, this helps. This application of this, whatever this is, helps a lot. Um, and so from there, it's actually been a little bit easier for me to recognize that, like, oh, this isn't too bad. Everything kind of feels the same a little bit.
Along those lines, for somebody who might be looking to get into fighting games competitively, are there any specific fundamental skills that you feel are just, essential to a player's foundation that you would say, if you're trying to get better, here's
Mhm.
1 to 3 things specifically that you can do to really level up your gameplay?
I think if you're, oh gosh, so if you're starting out at the very bottom, like you have never touched a fighting game in your life,
Assume that they can
or
play couch, just competitive couch with friends, and that they really
Mhm.
enjoy the game and they know how to play their character, but that they want to take that next step into competitive viability.
I would say that the number one thing would be you have to believe in your character for competitive viability. So if you are looking to become competitive and you really like the character that you play, but you believe that you cannot win a tournament with that character, you have to pick another character. In my eyes, it's hard to win a tournament or win anything if you genuinely believe that your character is the worst and you're never gonna win anything.
Mm,
And it's kind of surprising because a lot of people that I have met over time have that mindset where they think that their character is terrible. They don't have the tools to win, but they continue to play them and they continue to complain and they continue to not win, and
yeah, that
despite
that
being
feels like a
competitive.
mental block as much as a actual potential game block. That, okay, you
Mhm,
might not be wrong that your character, in terms of either matchup or balance, is not the best,
mhm, mhm.
but as cheesy as it sounds, of believe in yourself, believe in your character, that if you don't at least have the confidence that you can win, then yeah, you're gonna have trouble.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, for a lot of people, it is a legitimate excuse for them to not win, and they use that as a way to kind of escape the fact
Or
that
deflect.
they're yeah, yeah, I think deflect the way that, like, even like, sometimes there are people that might not be that great at the game despite them thinking they are. And sometimes that is projected onto the character and not necessarily onto, like, they're not able to look at themselves
Mm,
because it's the characters.
yeah.
But in order to avoid that, I do believe that you should be playing characters that you genuinely believe in. And if you like, there are a lot of people that like play what would be considered bottom tier, but then they also believe that I can do this, right? I can do this with this character, which is a
Yeah.
completely different
Whether
mindset.
it be, okay, even if I believe that they, in terms of certain statistics, aren't as good, that I
Mhm, mhm,
believe that matchup wise or technical play wise,
mhm,
that if I leverage these other parts of the character, that I can beat those that are statistically superior to me.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's fine too. Like play whoever you want, but I genuinely believe that you have to some degree believe in your ability to play that character and their ability to win with
Yeah.
you behind the wheel. So I guess the reason why I say that is because I look on Twitter all the time, my FGC Twitter, and I do see a lot of people that are oftentimes hard on themselves because they think like that. And they're veterans to the fighting game as well. They've been doing it for years and years and years. And a lot of people that see that kind of stuff are newer players, and then they also kind of fall into that mindset, that kind of vortex. And it actually drives players away sometimes because it can be difficult to play a game where you don't like the character that you're playing or you don't believe in it. And
Mm,
so, really kind of look into yourself and think about, the character that you're playing and the winning viability and what you want to do at the game and how to get better and things like that. And I think you'll find that if you believe in your character, you will improve very quickly because that character will be fun to you. It'll be fun to win. It'll be fun to learn. And I think that's a good way to approach it.
yeah. I think that's a good mindset, really, for anything. That if you don't believe in yourself, and whether it be your skills or your equipment, or the tools at your disposal, if you don't believe that you can do something, just, you don't need to be a psychology expert to realize that you're going to make it, at the very least, more difficult on yourself to succeed.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. It's all a mindset thing. But I think excuse me, I think people just need to hear it sometimes
Yeah.
to kind of avoid falling into that mindset.
hmm By the way, thank you, Carl Rocks 2460 or
Yay!
24601 and Booty Raid for the
Thanks,
follows.
Booty Raid.
Now, say I have a game I want to get better at. I believe in my character. Are there any particular fundamental skills, or just whether it be figuring out how to maneuver in the air, or certain fundamental combos that are pretty transferable from game to game? Are there any specific techniques that you would say are something that somebody who wants to get better should make sure that they have a just be able to do blindfolded in their sleep, be able to do this input or be cognizant of this aspect to really level up their play?
So if it's like execution based stuff, the way that I improve on execution is like for instance, if I want to air dash and I'm completely new to air dashing, try air dashing like 5 times in a row to one side. And then if you can't get that, then keep going until you get it 5 times in a row. And then you switch it up. Do 5 times in a row on the left side, right? And then once you do that, you're ready to take it into like a real game. Now try to air dash once in a real game. Did you get it? Okay, can you do it again? Okay. And then that's how you slowly improve on your execution. It's very repetitious. And a lot of it is actually muscle memory once
Muscle
you
memory,
kind of
yeah.
yeah, hop into it. And so, when you're doing it 5 times consecutively in a row, you are inputting that into your muscle memory, and then all of a sudden you're doing it without even thinking in a match. And I think that's just a really good way to improve your execution. Same with combos. There's not really any type of like universal combos per game, and I would go as far to say as per character if you're trying to play optimally. So, learn a combo and do the same thing. Perform it 5 times one way, 5 times the other way, and then do it once in a match. And if you got it in a match, then you're improving. That's improvement right there. And then you do it again and again and again, and then all of a sudden it's your bread and butter. You can do it with your eyes closed.
Yeah, and I suppose all of those different combo inputs, even if they aren't one-to-one transferable, that the ability to reliably do the, quarter stick swipe. I don't know what the proper term for it
Oh,
is.
quarter circle forward. Yeah,
Quarter
yeah,
circle forward, yeah. That
yeah.
the ability to do that is something that becomes muscle memory. And while, particular combos might not be transferable, that quarter circle forward is an input that is used in most games that is beyond the simple push button.
Right.
And
Yeah.
being able to just master those little technical things will be able to go from one game to another. But to get it, it's just the repetition, the muscle memory. And if you're able to do quarter circle forward in Marvel vs. Capcom, you'll be able to do it in Guilty Gear.
Yes and no. So
Oh, okay. No, please educate me.
so there's like certain games are more relaxed than others when it comes to the way that you execute it. So for instance, like if you do like, oh gosh, so I don't know how to explain this. Okay, so if you have a number pad and you look at your number pad, the motion for quarter circle forward is 2-3-6.
Yes.
So for instance, if you do 2-3-6-9, that motion, sometimes you might not get a fireball, for instance, because you put in a 9. So if you're practicing in a game where it's allowing you to do 2-3-6-9 instead of 2-3-6, then that actually won't transfer as much to another game. You'll have to relearn how to become more accurate with your inputs. So, and that's not really something that people learn right off the bat. That you don't think about the limitations of execution when you start off in a game, but it is something to be aware of. That sometimes if your execution is sloppy, it might not transfer well over to other games, which I've learned the hard way. I definitely Marvel vs. Capcom was a very lenient game when it came to your execution. So when I went to other games that were not lenient, it was awful. I was like, what's happening? Why can't I do this? Like, do I suck? Am I awful? The answer was yes, I did suck. And I did not have good execution. But then, I practiced it some more and it was great.
Okay,
But
well,
yeah, that will
maybe there's a
occur.
learning point in and of itself there of be aware of your game's limitations and just leniency, as you said.
Yes, I would say that it's not important if you're looking to just play that game. Like there's a lot of people that aren't like multi-game experts. They usually choose like maybe one or two games, which is
Mm,
fine too. But I would say like the limitations don't really matter as much unless you don't have an understanding of like why things aren't working if you're transferring over to other games. So it's completely dependent on whether or not you want to play other games.
that makes sense. Um, do you feel that as far as FGC as a whole goes, that you play as many, fewer, or more than average games in the community? That my guess is it would be more than average, just because of how many, and like you said, some choose to just focus on a single game, whereas you seem to hop around a bit. Or is it pretty common, even if people only necessarily, really deeply invest in one game, that do you see people jumping around from game to game pretty commonly?
I think it's actually fairly common for people to jump around to game, especially for like newly released games. I think it's less common for them to stick with it. So like
Hmm.
there's always like the game high of like the first month it's released where people are just like jamming on it. It's great.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the second month, half of the user base has fallen off. They moved on back to their other game, they moved on to like a different game completely. So it's really dependent on like the game itself. Like Strive was the game that was released during COVID last year. One of the most notable things was that it had really really good net play, and that means that when you played online with other people, the connections were usually pretty good.
Hmm.
And that was completely new for the FGC. Prior to that, all of our online connections sucked, and it sucked really really bad. And so, the
Well, Strive was in the
longevity,
right place at the right time, certainly.
it was. Yeah. Well, they made a really, really smart decision of focusing a lot of like focusing on making a really good net play like server for people to play on.
Hmm.
And so because of that, the FGC was actually quite dead before Strive came out. And because of Strive, a lot of people picked it up just to play a game, just to feel something again,
Yeah.
like, uh, and so a lot of people that even didn't normally jump around to different games played Strive. And so yeah, I think it's just kind of dependent on how hyped the game is, and where are the other games at the time. Like if another game releases but it's within a month of a different game, like chances are if that game isn't as good, people will continue to play the other game. So it's
Yeah.
just stuff like that. Yeah. But for the most part, yeah, pretty common that people jump around.
Hmm. You said that you feel Marvel vs. Capcom is probably your best game. Which games are you actively playing and competing in that now with things starting to go back to normal, obviously precautions in place and everything, but
Mhm.
tournaments are viable once again? That have you been able to travel to any tournaments in the recent past, or are you still waiting for things to simmer down a bit more before you're comfortable enough to step out and do that?
I actually did travel to a tournament a couple of weekends ago, before I visited my family. I didn't enter that tournament. And the reason why is because I missed the cutoff date.
Oh
or,
no!
or it got filled or something. I can't remember, but I definitely missed registering, which is fine for me. I didn't mind spectating. But one thing that I realized is that COVID restrictions are pretty different depending on where you are. And we're pretty progressive on the on the West Coast, but
Yeah.
not so much on the East Coast or anywhere else. And so I'm kind of hesitant to keep traveling. A lot of people at this event were not wearing masks. A couple of people were coughing, and United States doesn't require you to take a COVID test whenever you travel by air, only if you're going to another country. And so, uh, I actually feel very uncomfortable going to tournaments. I played some casuals with some friends, but for the most part, I don't think I want to continue to travel. I might just play online tournaments for a little while, for Melty Blood type Lumina and maybe some Guilty Gear Strive. And then once things kind of settle down more, maybe I'll travel again some more. But I don't really have immediate plans to travel again.
But you have been participating in tournaments in the meantime in Melty Blood and Guilty Gear?
I think so Melty Blood, no. I have not entered a tournament for that yet. That I think that only came out maybe a month ago. And then Guilty Gear Strive, I've played a couple of VTuber only tournaments, and I played a teams tournament with a couple of other VTubers where we got third. That was pretty fun. And then I got ninth place out of like I don't know, like 100 people in another VTuber tournament. And then that was nice. But I think that for the most part, I'm not as adamant about competing. Just I don't know. I think becoming a VTuber and being able to be more of a variety VTuber has kind of not killed my drive, but I'm certainly not focused on becoming like a high level fighting game player again at this time.
It's made you reprioritize.
It has, yeah. Before being a VTuber, I was a fighting game streamer, like exclusively. So I didn't actually really do any variety stuff. And so like going into VTubing and being able to kind of just do what I want and not feel like I have to play fighting games is kind of what I'm going for. I don't want people to feel like that's my main thing. My main thing is just kind of vibing, doing whatever I want.
Like I said earlier, I know you are a variety streamer, and that is how I classify you mentally. And it's then sort of the asterisk of fighting game specialist. That is something that you are a standout on. But I feel that certainly anyone who tunes into your streams can definitely tell that you are absolutely a variety streamer. That I would say that if I didn't know that you are, really invested in fighting games from certain conversations that you've had on stream, that one would not be able to tell from looking at your schedule posts, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely do that on purpose. So I feel like it's very hard to grow a fighting game stream, and that once you make a choice to branch out away from fighting games as your main genre of stream, it's actually very
You'll
hard
lose
to
a chunk of
retain.
your viewers because the fighting game community is very passionate and very dedicated to fighting games. And
yeah. Like that's exactly right. Like they are a community that really likes fighting games. And I think that for I guess for streamers in general, like anytime you do a major genre hop, you will be lucky to hold 1/3 of your retention or concurrent viewership. And I knew that immediately going into being a VTuber, so I already had told myself that I didn't want to focus on fighting games. And I also I also can get fairly salty. And when I don't like yell or anything, but I certainly get upset. Like I get agitated, so I complain a little bit, and I don't like that. I don't like that part of me that does that. So I'm like, okay, I don't think I can play fighting games long term because I know I'll get salty. So I like my schedule for this week. I actually, I have a couple of fighting games lined up, but that was after a hiatus of like a month and a half of not playing them. So it's I definitely pick and choose when I can play.
Yeah. Now, one thing, interestingly enough, that I feel has been sort of perhaps an unexpected transfer skill with fighting games is studying and analysis, or I'm not sure, maybe it's just you in general are someone who is the analytical type, and that may be part of why fighting games and competitive play was alluring to you, but that you mentioned part of your training was doing analysis and watching recordings of other players playing, figuring out the play styles and understanding, all right, if I know these particular high-level players are going to be at the tournament, I'm going to watch a couple of their matches, or at the very least saying, okay, if this is what some of the best players are doing, if I can learn from them just through their example and that type of analysis, I can learn myself. And that skill has transferred over to VTubing, and it was mentioned a bit earlier, partially with the EN VTubers Discord server, where it is a resource for people, but it also became a thing for you of being able to see what others are doing and be able to learn from learn for yourself in that way.
Yeah. So I guess in regards to like EN VTubers, for instance, by the third month that we had existed, I got Discord partnership, and that to me that wasn't by accident. It was a very meticulous thing that I had done with like what I believed would benefit growing a community and how I would implement that. And a lot of that took one took like I had built a community like prior to EN VTubers before, so I had a lot of trial and error to look back on. And so that was kind of like I had taken notes on like what worked, what didn't work, what's happening now, because I had handed off ownership to that server to another individual to see how they would how they would run it, what was different from me, what benefits they give to the server, what kinds of things did not benefit the server's growth and stuff like that. And so that was kind of like the studying and analysis of being able to look at what I did, and then completely apply all that learning to EN VTubers. And then by the third month we got partnership, which was really nice.
And that's absurdly fast.
It was. I was very surprised, I'm not gonna lie. So I knew that we would get partnership within 6 months. But within 3 months that was something I couldn't anticipate. uh, so I was very surprised. But that also kind of reinforced the idea that EN VTubers was kind of a resource that people wanted or needed coming into or I guess aspiring VTubers at the time, that they were looking for, that people wanted, I guess. And so
it very much reinforced and proved the concept at play of, like you said, it being a resource and it being needed. Just the fact that so many people flocked to it and were able to make it grow so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing goes kind of with my content. Like you said, I do study a lot of other content creators right now. Ludwig being a huge one, Mr. Beast as well. He kind of leads like content creation on YouTube. And so I try to watch a lot of videos and understand kind of what's working for them and why, as well as I watch a lot of Devin Nash, who talks a lot about Twitch culture in general, and kind of like the hot topics, like why are like when Twitch released the when Twitch got leaked of everyone's earnings, he discussed that at length as well, and why that was beneficial and things like that. And so a lot of that information I can take and kind of use for my own content to be able to understand, okay, where can I improve on? And that's kind of fun to me. That's the fun part of streaming. It's not necessarily going on to stream as much as it is understanding how to stream in an optimal way. And I think and that's from fighting games as well. How do I optimize this combo? How do I optimize, my decision making and stuff like that? So not to say that
sorry, you finish first.
Oh, sure. Yeah, not to say that I don't enjoy streaming, because I do enjoy streaming quite a bit. I love my community, and they are the reason why I keep going.
Yeah, no, if anything, the fact that you enjoy the process of optimization just means that you are right for streaming, because it's an important part, especially if you want to grow. And some people just do not enjoy that type of analysis at all. That for them, they love hitting go live. They love doing the stream itself. But the research phase of it all is not very appealing to them. So it's good that for you, both parts are fun and appealing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I honestly think without the former part being appealing to me, I don't know if I would actually continue to stream. I think
Hmm.
that I would have to have some kind of enjoyment of the data for me to keep going.
Yeah. Were there any particular learnings, or just whether it be a nugget of information from a video you saw or something that you sort of discovered or realized for yourself that you feel made a particular impact on your content?
One thing that I had learned, and this is from kind of a video from Ludwig, is that make content segmented for your YouTube channel. So, uh, for the most part, content your brand itself doesn't really live on Twitch. It lives on your YouTube channel. And when he talked about creating like segmented content for your like YouTube, that blew my mind. And I kind of took that to heart and I played around with it a little bit. So I ended up doing a couple of segments on my stream. One of them was I had ban appeals and I had chat be like the
I remember that one. That
judges.
one was fun, honestly.
It was very fun, right? I quite enjoyed it. But that's the kind of thing where it actually took some pre-planning of the stream. I had to set everything up. I had to kind of understand like, okay, how will I direct this? I had to actually take a look at the a bunch of the fans first and kind of weed some out just
To make
because
sure
they weren't
nothing too
appropriate.
profane was in there, or
Right, yeah, it's either they didn't go with the flow of the segment or yeah, it was just like not appropriate for a stream. And so I had to go
Mhm.
through that as well. And the preparation for that stream and like from idea to the end, it took about 2 hours for me to like prepare for that stream. Um and then I also did another segmented stream where I ate spicy ramen. And those were some of my highest viewership streams without raids. I think the average concurrent for both was around 150.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, I remember it being
And
a crowd that day for the ban appeals.
yeah, the for some reason people really just like to see people fall. So yeah, like that was kind of something I knew that, you know, I wanted to kind of do for my stream. Because I knew that they like I didn't anticipate the actual amount of people that would come. Though I did anticipate that there would be more than my usual concurrent just based upon what I was planning and how I was executing it. And that was completely because I learned that hey, if you have content that is you know, segmented, it has some sort of topic that you're trying to cover instead of just like playing a game or something like that, then it's more appealing to a general audience. And so coming up with the segmented ideas is a little bit harder, but yeah, once I, you know, get them down and things like that, then I can start planning for it, and it actually improves the quality of my stream quite a bit.
Yeah. Plus, that's something that naturally you can't do every day because you need to wait for those appeals to stack up again.
Right. Yeah. Well, that would just be one segment, right? That
Yeah.
there would be like a bunch others, like, oh, you know, I gave chat my credit card for a day, and you know they spent this on Amazon, you know, stuff like that.
Hmm. Are there any new concepts that you've been tinkering around with that you're able to share?
Unfortunately, not that I can share at this time. But I do have some coming up here in December.
All right, folks. Well, make sure to follow Fumiko Hoshi on Twitch and Twitter so you can stay up to date for all these new things she's got planned.
Yay!
Is there a piece of advice that you would have for others? That you've already mentioned the idea of your content lives on YouTube, but is there something that you yourself have sort of discovered along the way that you feel others either might not prioritize as much or might not realize that you usually sort of have as a talking point when you're talking to someone who is just getting into things?
So if I think it depends completely on your goals. So like for instance, if your goal is to grow, excuse me, if your goal is to grow, um, and then you want to make a TikTok, and that's always going to be the thing I recommend to everybody. TikTok is a very very crazy platform where people can grow insanely fast. And it's completely short form content. So normally it's either like 15 to 30 seconds. And the way that the algorithm benefits VTubers in general is quite generous, I would say. I've had multiple TikToks that are like over 500,000 views, and then I've had a couple in the millions, and that definitely helps with people discovering you. So yeah, I would definitely say that if you are starting out as a VTuber, you have a model ready to go, and you are looking to grow. I would say create a TikTok and try to make videos from there and learn how it works.
Hmm. Honestly, that's been something that I've been mulling over for myself of just, taking if there's any particularly good clips from interviews and then uploading those. I would not expect that to do as well as, properly, you know, content that is made for TikTok. That I know just out of the gate that it would not necessarily be optimal, but sort of recognizing the power that TikTok has, that has been something I've been, sort of mentally exploring myself, even if I haven't taken the plunge yet. But I know a lot of people have been really getting into TikTok and
Mhm.
making unique content for it, and that the numbers have shown, like you said, that it can be a really powerful thing. That there's a lot of people on there, and the view numbers can climb really fast.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say actually that TikTok is not a platform for original content, which is kind of weird to say. The big appeal for TikTok is that people take a joke or people take what's called a sound. So it's either like music or somebody talking and things like that, and they'll either lip sync it or they'll like copy a meme and things like that. And so TikTok is the platform for recycled memes over and over until they're dead. That's kind of what TikTok is. And if you get, original content out there and it's absolutely amazing and it takes off and it
Then it
becomes a
will become a
meme.
meme and done
Yeah.
to death.
Yep, exactly. So either way, you are the memer, like the I don't know how to say it, but yeah, you will either create the meme or become the meme.
Hmm.
It's like it's one or the other. And so for a lot of VTubers, it's so easy to like do something like a lip sync because we're VTubers. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily very hard for us. And so I a lot of content that I see on there as well is actually stream clips, and a lot of them do take off. Like I've seen Iron Mouse a couple of times on my For You page, and a couple of other VTubers with clips. I know Girl DM as well takes a lot of stream clips from her stream, and they edit it for the TikTok format, and they usually perform pretty well. So I would say even if it's just stream segments, as long as they're edited to kind of match the attention span of people on TikTok, usually they'll do pretty good.
Hmm. Maybe it's something that I'll end up doing after all. Who knows?
Yeah, you should try it out.
Yeah. Um. So one thing that you sent me was you have a anime list that it's run off of anylist.com or net. I forget which one it is, but a site that I usually use for keeping up with what shows are airing in a given season and when are certain airing dates and whatnot. But they also have a function that mirrors my anime list where you can track, score, and just organize all the shows that you've watched. And you're a pretty big anime fan. I think the number of completed shows you had on there was 267, and then there
Oh
was
gosh.
100 and odd dropped ones. There were a couple that you had actually dropped really near the end. There must have been something there that you just didn't like, but there was a lot of completed ones, and a couple of them are ones that I have seen and really like as well. A couple of the shows that you listed as tens that I also hold in very high regard are Steins Gate, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, and one that I don't see on as many lists that I appreciated seeing on yours was Tiger and Bunny.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's such a good show. Yeah. Oh my goodness, where to start? I could talk about anime for a long time, I think, in terms of like which ones I like. But I mean Haruhi was a classic. the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi. If you're not familiar, it's like about a high school girl and she controls the world and but she doesn't know it. Pretty much, is kind of the
Yeah.
premise and stuff.
That
Uh,
that like you said, girl's god, she doesn't know it, and the people from various supernatural factions are assigned to entertain her, because if she isn't entertained, she might accidentally destroy the world.
yes.
It just, if you've ever wished, gosh, I wish that I could live in an entirely different world from the one I'm in right now. She could conceivably do that and destroy the world as we know it and just create a new one on a whim. And she doesn't know that she has that power, and she's just a teenage girl who would be prone to such thoughts. So it's an alien, a time traveler, and an Esper are assigned to entertain her along with this one other completely normal student who's gotten wrapped up in all of this to make sure that she doesn't destroy the world. But the thing is, they can't let her know that there's an alien, time traveler, and Esper around her, because that would also mess with the psyche of anybody. So it's this entirely wacky thing, and then just she will, even if not destroy the world, manipulate the world inadvertently in strange ways, and the people around with her have to deal with it.
Yeah, so imagine like if she thinks I'm bored, then the world will explode. Like it's that it can be that intense. And so that was an anime that really kind of stuck with me even growing up, because I think I watched it when I was like maybe coming out of middle school, and it was like one of the best looking animes at that time. It was pretty revolutionary. It was by Kyoto Animation, who is very famous for like Violet Evergarden and stuff like that. And so yeah, that was a wonderful show. I loved it very much. And I continue to wish that there is more. I hope they
Have you
release
read the
some
light
more.
novels?
I have not.
Okay, I have. I don't read many of the light novels. I sought these ones out specifically because the content for Haruhi ends after 5 of the 11 novels. And I can definitely say it's worth reading. The way the narration is done, it's Kyon narrating still, and he is just as snarky in his text narration as he is in the voiceover. So, I forget who published them, but you can probably find them on Amazon, or a actual bookstore if you're able to, if you have like a Kinokuniya by you or something. But I definitely recommend it. That the story actually does have a full proper arc and resolution, and I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I'm glad that it has a good like resolution to it, because oftentimes with a series that's really really good but involves a little bit of the supernatural, sometimes it could end a little bit wonky, especially with time travel. It can really get convoluted.
Well, I won't say
very,
it wasn't
very fast.
wonky, but I felt that it was fun, acceptable, and logical enough wonky.
Yeah, and that's good enough for me, honestly. I have watched the movie, and I have a few friends that have talked about the novel to me, so I've been a little bit spoiled. But yeah, for the most part, anime is top notch, amazing.
Yeah.
And then
I even watched all of the Endless 8.
You did. You are a strong person. You are so strong.
The animators put in the effort. They have different outfits every time. It's different shot compositions, and I just happened to have a lot of free time that day.
Yeah, for those that don't know, they put out a second season of Haruhi, and it was there. Part of the season had something called Endless 8 in it, which was like it was repetitive. Every episode for 8 episodes, 7 or 8 episodes, it was like exactly the same. And I don't want to spoil anything, but it was like maybe the camera angle was a little bit different, and then they were like
the outfits were
wearing,
different. That the animators put in 8 episodes worth of work here.
Yeah,
and the voice actors had to do 8 takes of these things because there was just enough different that you can't actually copy paste it all. But the gimmick at play is, as many people do, Haruhi wished that summer vacation wouldn't end, so it didn't. And they keep repeating the last 2 weeks of summer, and that is the Endless 8, them going through the motions, realizing they're in a time loop, attempting to break out of the time loop, and failing, for
Mhm.
many, many, many times.
Yes, it was very painful to watch. I tried to watch 3 of them of the Endless 8, and I by the 3rd episode, I was like, "Okay, this is the same stuff," and I just skipped to the end. I
Yep.
couldn't do
I
it.
just feel
I
bad for the people who
couldn't.
had to deal with that on broadcast schedule, that for 2 months,
Oh, yeah.
2 months, they basically didn't have the show. And supposedly, what happened in production was that it was not intended to initially be 8 episodes, because in the light novels, it's one chapter. It's about 35 pages. It is only the final loop.
Mhm.
The fact that they did it 8 times over is unique to the anime, and the story goes that the content that became the movie was initially part of season 2, but then
Oh,
they decided
interesting.
to spin it off and make that arc a movie of its own, but then they had to pad out season 2, and that is
Mm.
how the Endless Eight happened. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I've seen a couple videos that supposedly point to that being the case, and it's the most logical thing I've been able to find.
Yeah, I would say that if they made a conscious decision to be like, all right, guys, like Endless Eight, let's animate it all. Like we want to do this. I think if they were sitting in the boardroom and they said that to themselves, I don't know. I think it would that explanation you gave is way more likely, and I hope and pray that that is
If nothing
what
else, one thing I
actually
know is
happened.
real is that the director has appeared at a convention and said, and you can find recordings of this on YouTube, that the Endless Eight, as they did it, was a mistake.
Okay, there we go. Let's go! Yay!
Hey, at
All
least they
right.
learned. But a lot of people also point to that as why the series never got concluded in animated
Mm.
form.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, well, because the movie was released after season 2, right?
It was, yeah, and the movie was
Okay.
great.
Yeah, the movie was amazing. I quite liked that. So I was pretty sad when they didn't release more after the movie.
Yeah,
Um,
I hold out hope that KyoAni will go back and someday finish it, because I feel like it has become such an evergreen that
mhm.
they could just pick it back up and it would be heralded with so much fanfare. People would lose their minds
Oh,
if we got more
definitely.
Haruhi. That it would be very easy money for KyoAni, and
Mhm.
it's just if they decide to do it. But I feel like they could at any given point, and given some of the frankly delayed remakes we've been getting, that Fruits Basket got rebooted properly
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
couple years back, Shaman King more recently, and a couple others, that you never know, maybe it could happen. I'm certainly not holding my breath, but it's something that I still cross my fingers for.
Yeah, definitely. I think that like for the most part, it's a lot of pressure too. This is Haruhi was like a big staple for people of that time. Like
Yeah.
it was a huge thing for like worldwide essentially. And so for them to come back and make another one and possibly have it not as good, I cannot imagine the backlash. To
Well,
be honest,
as
I would feel so
I
bad
feel
for
like
them.
if they just follow the source material, they'll be fine. But that
Mhm.
brings me to another thing that I noticed on your list, is that
Uh-huh.
you graded Promised Neverland as a 9,
Mhm.
but you didn't have season 2 on there.
Oh, yeah, I heard the stories about season 2, and quite frankly, I'm not interested in putting in like 6 hours of my life into something I know that I won't like. So,
Yep. Basically,
yeah.
yeah, that's sort of where I wound up. That I made it halfway through season 2, and then I uh, got busy actually for a couple weeks and fell behind a couple episodes, and then heard the things and just didn't pick it back up from there.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
that's definitely a story for those who aren't in the know. Promised Neverland was a series that was just phenomenal in season 1, that it went off of its source material very well, and then sped up season 2 to conclude by cutting out one of its most popular arcs and heavily expediting several others. And
Mhm.
for people who are into anime, we're used to things being either catching up to the source material and then having to do their own thing, or doing some sort of adaptive creative changes.
Right,
And the
yeah.
success or failure of those can vary greatly.
Mhm.
And this, I think, is going to go down as one of the more prolific failures, just because the first season was considered so good. To see such a 180 over a course of one season to another. I've seen some that people say, okay, you know, once they caught up, it wasn't as good, and it's you know, I wish they'd done the thing, but this was just epic levels of failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. They took a great thing and they made it really, really sucky. It's the best way to put it. You go into expectations with season 2, like this is gonna be the best conclusion, right? This is gonna be great season. Season 1 was phenomenal, like everything was great, and then season 2, it's like, oh, like to me, it almost feels like it cancels out season 1. Like I don't even want to think about the Promised Neverland in general. Kind of like shoot, Game of Thrones, right? That was such a
That's a great analogy.
yeah, it was incredible. Everybody was talking about it while it was releasing. It was the hottest topic for everyone for years, and then it concluded with such a terrible, terrible conclusion. And then
You soured everything before it.
yep, no, people don't even want to rewatch it because they know that the last season is just so horrible that they don't want to build up all this expectation only to be sad again. And I think the same thing happens for Promised Neverland. I don't think people will watch season 1 anymore knowing what season 2 is like.
And it's really unfortunate because it was so good that, you know, I doubt they ever would, but it's the type of thing that people will wish for a very long time that they will go back. There was a petition. No, that was for Game of Thrones, that there was a petition to go back and reshoot season 8.
I wish they would. Then maybe people would talk about it again.
Yeah. So the other two that were high up there were Steins Gate and Tiger and Bunny, and then you rated my personal favorite series of all time as a 9, and that's Code Geass.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the first season of Code Geass quite a bit. Thought the pacing was really good. The plot was very intriguing. I really liked the characters. I thought Lelouch was so cool back in the day. So yeah, I really enjoyed Code Geass. I thought the end of season 2 was actually quite good as well. But I wasn't as captivated by the story in season 2. I think that I remember that there was some like political talks in terms with like I don't know. There was a political arc that lasted for like 4 episodes in season 2.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. And the thing is, I love that type of thing. That what I love is smart characters doing smart things, and that's what really drew the appeal of Lelouch for me. I'm not a huge mech fan. I enjoyed the action. That wasn't the reason I watched it, but I like those sort of cerebral plotting, thinking 5 steps ahead types of stories where you could see that play out, and those often come into play for political intrigue arcs, which is why I very much enjoyed season 2 just as much as season 1, but I completely understand that it is very different from season 1, and why a lot of people who don't like that don't hold season 2 as highly.
Yeah, I think the pacing was a little bit different because they open up season 2 with kind of like a new character immediately, and you're like, what? Question mark? I don't want to spoil it for those that have never seen Code Geass, but
it's meant to be confusing. That is definitely it is confusing by function, but that still means that as a viewer you are confused, and that's not always a good place to be as a viewer.
Yeah, I think it was the payoff for me, where I was like, okay, like I understand why they did it, but the like steps to get there I wasn't a fan of.
I can respect that.
Yeah, but I think overall it's still really good. Like I would definitely rewatch it now. There's a lot that I don't remember about it, so it'd be like almost like a first rewatch or first watch. So I like spending a lot of time away from series that can get kind of complex, so then I forget about them. And then I'm like,
and then it feels better when you go back and because you don't remember as much or see it coming.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that same type of anticipation again, which is great.
Oh my gosh, Sir Danker in the chat, you didn't see the ending. I do not believe that Code Geass is the best series of all time. It is my favorite series of all time. There's a difference. I think it is a very good series, but I think its ending, its last 4 episodes, is one of the best endings of a story in almost any media that I've seen. At the very least, one of my favorite endings that I think the ending in particular, at the inverse of Promised Neverland and Game of Thrones, is why a lot of people hold Gia so highly, that even if season 2 meandered a bit, that the ending was really strong. And there's a relative consensus on that obviously you're never going to get total agreement, but most people liked the ending.
Yeah, I would say that I was very satisfied with the way that it ended. And I was a little bit skeptical when they were starting to release the OVAs, because gosh, the OVAs, there's like 6 episodes and they're released over a course of like 6 years or something, or 10 years. It was pretty nuts. But I was scared that the OVAs would try to enhance upon the ending, and I think they just ended up being a standalone of the series itself. So I'm glad that they preserved the ending and didn't try to cop it out, because a lot of people will see backlash to an ending and then they'll try to rectify it, like Mass Effect 3. They'll try to do something about it. But then I thought it ended pretty great. So
yeah, and I think the fact that they probably knew that the ending they already had was pretty popular, so they saw a good thing. They're like, okay, cool, we're not gonna mess with this.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, thank goodness. I'm down for that.
So we've already been at this for almost 2 hours now. Time flies.
It does. Holy heck.
So before we wrap up, I have a couple of last questions that I always ask my guests. And the first of them is, do you have any goals that you want to accomplish before the end of the year? That this question definitely has a shorter timeline than others, since now we're at the point where we have effectively 1 month left. So there's not a lot of time remaining. But are there any last things that you want to be able to squeeze in before 2021 is out?
This is really ambitious, but I want to try and get Twitch partner by the end of 2021. And I also want to release a video per week until the end of 2021. So 4 videos technically on my YouTube. So yeah, I'm gonna try and do that.
When you say videos, are you able to say, like, are we talking, shorts? Are we talking ones that might be 5 to 10 minutes on a particular topic, or compilations?
Yeah, so they would be like 10-minute edited videos that from like my streams and things like that. So like my spicy ramen, I want to do my collaboration with Scar, I would want to do, and stuff like that. But I'm the one that's editing them, so it's really dependent on how diligent I am at editing these videos.
Yeah, on top of doing your streams, on top of running your Discord server, on top of running the Vtuber's Discord server.
Yeah, there's a lot. So I'm really hoping I can find time to just sit down and video edit for like 10 hours and call it good.
Yeah. So I think that it's possible that time management, that you wouldn't have made it this far with all the things that you're already spinning if you weren't good at time management. And 10 hours is not insignificant, but I think you'll be able to do it.
Oh, it would be 10 hours per video. So it would be 10 hours per week.
Well, I still have faith.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad somebody does. I'll do my best.
Still, you know yourself best in that, if things come up and you get busy, or if something happens and you have to reprioritize, that I also trust that you're going to be the type that won't overcommit yourself and, cause yourself mental harm by trying to push to get those 4 videos out if you don't need to.
Oh, yeah, definitely not. I'm very big advocate of like taking care of your mental health. So I'm very aware of like where I am mentally. So I would, definitely won't do that.
Yeah. And the last question that I always ask all my guests is, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that isn't what is the definition of a VTuber, but to you, Fumiko Hoshi, what does it mean to be a VTuber? And I've had all sorts of answers. Some people take a very clinical approach of, it is a mask that I wear, it is a tool in my arsenal as a content creator. Others have a more personal attachment of, it allows me to get in touch with my inner child, or it lets me be something that I can't be in real life. And everything on that spectrum and beyond is valid. There is literally no right or wrong answer, but for you personally, what does it mean to be a VTuber?
What does it mean to be a VTuber? It means a lot. I think that uh, being a VTuber to me means that I can help others. Um, and I like being able to use my platform as a VTuber to do things like create communities, to do things like charity streams. We did one for Games for Love, and then we also did one for Survivors.org, which means a lot to me. That's something that I've always wanted to do. It means that I can bring together my own personal community of like support where everyone kind of supports each other. And it's VTubing to me is the ability to be inclusive of people that want to be a part of our community, and to be able to help people, be kind to one another, to help themselves as well. I talk a lot about mental health and stuff too. And so yeah, it just I guess it just means a lot to me. I value being able to uh do things like this. And I'm glad that VTubing exists so I can use my platform to bring attention to things that I value.
Mm, that's awesome. And that's a question that I've asked all my guests since the first show, and it's one that I've kept because I love hearing the answers, because I never know what someone is going to say, but when they say it, I always say, that makes sense for you.
Yeah.
And that for you, it very much makes sense. Going back to the very beginning of all this with the VTubers Discord server, of being able to give back, of being able to make content, of being able to share things with people. And like you said, it is a lot. You have a lot of different interests, a lot of different skills, and you make use of all of them as Fumiko Hoshi. And it's been really cool over the past year that obviously you've been at this longer than I've been in the community, but for at least the year or so now that I've been in the community, it's been really fun watching you just grow and continue to have that impact, because you were one of the people that I was aware of from the get-go, that
Aw.
I've met and seen and discovered a lot of people over the past almost 12 months now. But since you were one of the people that I was aware of very, very early on, it means that I remember back when you didn't have this model, that you were using a PNG for a while, and you had a hiatus for a time while you were getting all of your assets together. And then finally being able to debut in June, and just running from there, and getting a couple million views on TikTok. And it's been a heck of a year for you, Fumiko.
Yeah. It's been very busy, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I've had such a blast being able to do everything that I've been able to for the past year. It's been an incredible journey.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there is much more of this journey to be had, and I can't wait to see it. And I can't thank you enough for being on the show tonight. I hope I was able to give you a good time. That I certainly enjoyed myself. I hope you did as well.
Yeah, yeah, I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for bringing me on, Jay. Honestly, like I had such a blast being on the show.
My pleasure. As we start to wind down, do you have anybody that you would like us to raid?
Oh, to raid. Ooh, let me see.
While Fumi is looking at that, I'll go on and do a couple of the standard outro points of business. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to follow Fumiko. Her Twitch and Twitter links are right there on the bottom of the screen, but I will also use this command one more. F-U-M-I-C, nope, that's not right. F-U-M-I-K-O, I can spell, there we go. So I have several of her links there, including her link tree at bottom, which will take you to her broader list of social media links. So do be sure to follow her. She does great work both in the VTuber Discord server and her own channel. There's a lot more to learn about her than we were able to cover in 2 hours, certainly, but hopefully you were able to learn just a little bit more about her, even if you have already been tuning into her streams.
Yeah, I hope everyone had a good time. I really appreciate seeing so many familiar faces from the community coming out and supporting. So, if you enjoyed the interview today, please share the love with Jay as well, and give him a follow and check him out on his Twitter.
And I do these shows just about every week. I'm actually not going to be doing one next weekend. I have a commitment, but I will be back later on, and I'm in the early phases of planning a special anniversary stream that it's
Ooh.
going to be January 15th and 16th. It is going to be 2 days benefiting Child's Play charity. It's going to be 12 hours
Aw.
each day. I'm going to be organizing. And Fumiko, I will be asking if you might be able to set aside a bit of time sometime that weekend. We'll talk later. But
Sure.
the goal
Yeah.
is to have as many of my previous guests on as I can and just do a big 2 day charity bash for all of that.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to be a part of that. Definitely send me the information and we can discuss it more. Yeah.
Definitely. Do you have a raid target for us?
I do. Lane is actually streaming right
Oh,
now.
perfect.
Yeah, so since she's the one that kind of connected us, I would love to be able to send the love back to her.
Definitely. And I need to remember that she has flipped her name. It is no longer Blanc Lane. It is now Lane Blanc for her URL.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sending everybody that way. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm going to play an outro, but we'll be sending you over to Lane for a raid message. Well, one, spam any and all Fumiko emotes that you have. Otherwise, just do Jay and Fumi say hi.
Yay. Okay, you hear that? Jay and Fumi say hi.
Hey. Well, I'm Jay. This has been Vtuber Talk. Like I said, if you are so inclined, follow me here on Twitch or on Twitter. Fumiko, thank you. This has been so much fun. Everybody in chat,
Yeah.
thank you as well. As a host, every show is so fun and different for me, and this has been just another big success. Even though I know I'm not the biggest interviewer out there, I'm still having a blast. I'm glad that you all seem to be having a blast as well. I hope to see you all again, and until then, you all just have a great evening.
Hi guys. Thank you for joining.